Good evening, everybody. I am back with Chapter 3 of Earl on the Train. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Here we go. Chapter 3, Mal de Mer. Nick clutched the rail, willing the steamer to go faster, or to turn around and go home. Anything to end the agony. You can end this. The thought sparked an acute awareness of the many vials tucked into the pockets of his coat. One swallow and he could settle his heaving stomach. No, he wouldn't ruin this. He wouldn't throw away almost 20 days of self-restraint on a mere bout of seasickness, even if it might actually be killing him. Had it been this bad when he was a child? He remembered a lot of vomiting, but not how it had felt. If he had, he might have told Isleston to go jump in the Thames. "Oh, Mr. Masterson, you are traveling to France after all!" The cheerful voice stabbed into his brain. Oh, bloody hell. This mission couldn't possibly have begun more poorly. He'd anticipated the early morning and the cramped accommodations, and even the sleepless night that often preceded that sort of venture. What he hadn't anticipated was that the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen would plop down into the seat beside him, along with a carpet bag the size of a small elephant, and talk at him for 3 hours straight. He didn't want to like her. He didn't want to like anything at all just now, when he was exhausted and ill and anxious about carrying potions on his person. He wanted to be surly and angry at the world, but she had barged into his misery with her perfect smile and her bubbly personality. And God help him, he liked it. Almost enough to improve his mood. Almost. He should have stayed home and worked on the drawing room. "Is the view nice from here?" She came to stand up beside him, and he risked glancing away from the horizon. Who was this woman? She was dressed like a debutante, all pink and ruffled. Even her wool overcoat was pink, with white fur at the neck and wrists. Pink lace gloves covered elegant hands, and a matching parasol rested on her shoulder. She was young, and most the same 23 years as his sister. Yet she had no maid, no chaperone, no mother or sister, not even a scowling older brother or a daft uncle. "You look a bit pale," she said, her delicate blonde brows crinkling together in a frown. "Are you unwell? Could I fetch you something?" "No, thank you." Nick fixed his gaze back on the horizon. Damn, but he felt like hell. Nausea rolled over him in unrelenting waves, turning his stomach in knots. The constant rocking of the boat made him light-headed and unsteady on his feet. "Have you tried ginger root? It comes highly recommended. Or perhaps you would feel better sitting down. I would be happy to help you find a seat." No. He'd come up here for the fresh air. The enclosed passenger compartment only made it worse. "Well, I feel terrible not being able to help. Not so terrible as you feel, no doubt, but I'm fine." Why did she have to be so damn nice? How could she tell that he wasn't always a miserable, scowling curmudgeon? "Of course." He could hear the disbelief in her words. "Perhaps I will simply distract you from the tedium of the journey, then. You are the only person I know aboard this ship, after all. What shall we talk about? France? Have you ever been? Is it your final destination? I've never been out of England myself, and I'm greatly looking forward to it, though I'm just passing through." Nick shut his eyes and concentrated on her voice. To his continued annoyance, it had a pleasant lilt that he found soothing, even if her words did tumble out at an alarmingly rapid pace. Her accent suggested that she was a woman of education and wealth, which again made him wonder what she was doing traveling second class alone. The fruity scent of her perfume infiltrated his nostrils. The fragrance was neither cloying nor acrid, and she'd applied just the right amount. She was some sort of perfume expert based on her hour-long talk on tinctures and essences on the train. He'd missed most of it, trying to focus on the task his uncle had assigned him and the questions he needed to ask along his journey. The men in Dover had been singularly unhelpful. None of the dock workers he'd spoken to could even identify a potion shipment, and the customs official had glared at him as if he'd been a smuggler. Even throwing his title around had gotten him nowhere. Unshaven and dressed in his less-than-pristine coat, they probably hadn't believed him. No matter. He hadn't expected to learn anything of importance in Dover anyway. What mattered were his findings on the continent, and ultimately in India. I had such an opportunity, so I decided to allow myself 2 days of perusing the perfumeries and seeing the sights. Nick opened his eyes, trying to process her words. "I'm sorry, 2 days in Paris?" "Yes, that's correct. I'm taking the 3 p.m. train from Calais today. It won't arrive until after 11, I'm afraid." He grimaced, and not from his illness. "Yes, I know." "Oh, are you taking the same train?" "I am." Wonderful. It's so nice to travel with someone I know. I wasn't at all certain how it would be, traveling. I imagine it's not the easiest thing to make friends on a train, but it seems to have worked out rather well, don't you think? Miss... Damn, what was her name? She'd only said it the once that he could recall, and of course it had washed right over him like these hellish waves that lapped at the side of him. He forged ahead regardless. Putting aside the fact that a few hours' journey together on public transport hardly constitutes a friendship, am I correct in my belief that I am the closest you have to a companion during your travels? Well, yes, so far. And you are not meeting any friend or relative upon your arrival in Paris? No, I'm staying at a hotel. The arrangements have been made. I have my copy of Bradshaw's guide. Have you used it? It has travel tips, train schedules and pricing, hotels, ads for useful products and services. I've seen it, yes. But to be clear, you intend to wander the city alone for 2 days? That had been my plan, yes. Bloody hell. Her cheeks turned the color of her dress. Mr. Masterson, really? I beg your pardon. I'm feeling rather unwell just now, and my mind is not where it should be. Oh, yes, of course. I'm so sorry. Is there anything I might do for you? Nick leaned on the rail, the churning in his belly a fraction less than it had been before the distraction of Miss Strawberries. She'd been right about that, irritatingly enough. Simply keep talking about something. He waved a hand. The sights you wish to see in Paris, perhaps. Oh, well, I do wish to go to the Louvre, though I have time to only see a fraction of his collections, and Nick made a mental list of the places as she rattled them off. It would be damned awkward escorting her around while trying to see to his own business. But there was nothing to be done about it. No way in hell was he letting an innocent young woman with no traveling experience dash about the continent all on her own. Unscrupulous louts would take one look at those spun-gold tresses and sky-blue eyes and leap to ply her with every seductive trick in their arsenals. Or was that what she hoped for? She seemed a forthright and self-possessed woman. Perhaps she was rebelling against an overprotective family, or fleeing the promise of a passionless marriage. This was her escape, her chance to live only for herself. It would explain the disparity between her upper-class clothing and her second-class fares. If that were the case, Nick would be best served to keep his distance. Some family member would be hot on her trail. Being caught alone with her would lead to accusations of all manner of licentious behavior. And if he was going to be accused of doing indecent things to those plump, pouty lips and that delectable body, it had damn well better be because he was guilty of every single charge laid at his door. He had poor choices all around. Risk an angry relative? Leave her to possible danger and ruin? To the pleasures of some other man? Nick spoke, sealing his fate. I will be in Paris for a few days on business. Perhaps we might go about together. Oh, that would be... The strawberry blush returned to her cheeks. Terribly improper, but very pleasant, I think. Thank you. You're welcome. He half choked on the words as an especially large wave rocked the ship. His insides lurched. Oh, God. Let me get you something. A damp handkerchief, at least, to cool your brow. You look to be perspiring. Nick leaned over the rail in case his breakfast made a sudden reappearance. I may be dead before you return. Lace-covered fingers trailed down his arm. Never fear, it's only another hour or so before we make landfall. Nick choked back a mouthful of bile. Marvelous. And that is my poor seasick Earl. Just for the record, I get very, very airsick, and I wrote a big chunk of this book around the time that I traveled with my husband to India, and it was like a 22-hour trip from my house to get to the airport there, and I was sick almost the entire time, and so I kind of added the seasick character because I was like, I know how he feels.